In solemn councils sat the gods from Kolob's height supreme. Celestial light blazed forth afar over countless cocoa beam, and faintest tinged the fiery fringe of that resplendent day, lumined the dark abysmal realm where earth in chaos lay. Silence, that awful hour was won, when thought doth most avail of worlds unborn the destiny, hung trembling in the scale. Silent self spelled, and there arose those kings and priests among, a power sublime than whom appeared none nobler mid the throng. A stature mingling strength with grace, of meek through godlike mien, the glory of whose countenance outshone the noonday sheen. Whiter his hair than ocean spray, or frost of alpine hill, he spake, attention grew more grave, the stillness even more still. Father, the voice like music fell, clear as the murmuring flow of mountain streamlet trickling down from heights of virgin snow. Father, it said, since one must die, thy children to redeem, from spheres all formless now and void, where pulsing life shall teem. And mighty Michael, foremost fall, that mortal man may be, and chosen Savior thou must send, lo here am I, send me. I ask, I seek no recompense, save that which were mine. Mine be the willing sacrifice, the endless glory thine.
Jesus land if they live righteously.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and I'm excited to welcome in Reid Neilson. Now, I got to get that right because it's a Mormon thing when we say Nelson, or if you add the T of it as well, where it's Milton. Dr. Neilson, he has done many things in his life, including a book that we're going to talk about in the second and third block, but you served as a mission president. You were the assistant church historian and recorder for the church. You lead the Neil A. Maxwell Institute for Religious Scholarship, the Religious Studies Center, and BYU Studies, or rather you oversee those organizations, and now you're just here visiting with me.
Hey, what a great afternoon to do so.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to pick up a few of those things. Mission president, tell me what that is like. Is that drowning at first and then missing it more than anything else, like I've always heard?
That's a pretty good description. It's probably the most intense, the most difficult thing I've ever done, but also the most meaningful. It was a great chance to serve for the first time and probably last time with my wife full time. There's not many opportunities in the church where you get to actually serve together as spouses.
Sure.
And this is one of them. So for 3 years, we took our 5 children, ages 15 to age 3, out to Washington, D.C. and lived there. And then the COVID pandemic hit. So we got a little bit of everything out there during that time. But it was very, very meaningful, and not a day goes by that we don't think about it.
And you're sort of in the spotlight too, because DC, I mean, as far as like a stateside mission, other than maybe Salt Lake and some other ones, maybe a other small handful, DC, that's pretty high profile. I imagine you're getting people coming in, or that you're teaching, or that you're among in that mission, you know, from a worldly respect, bigger than maybe, you know, Nebraska. No offense, Nebraska.
Right. It is quite a cosmopolitan area, and it really is one of the epicenters of the church back on the East Coast because of the Washington, D.C. temple, especially the visitor center. When we were there, the temple itself was going through a renovation, and the last few months of our mission were the open house. And so many high-profile guests, dignitaries, government officials, etc., were able to go through the temple. So that was really neat to be part of there. So D.C., what a place to be.
Yeah. And I also have to commend you because, you know, you talk about serving with your wife, but also children in home. That is a mission president that, like, I can't imagine doing it in general without kids in my home, but like also showing up as dad and showing up in those ways, and as mom, and, you know, as all that. That seems like almost like too much.
Well, it was a lot. In hindsight, many people have said, how in the world did you do that? Like, how are you a mission leader and a dad and just all the things you're supposed to be? And my wife and I have often said to each other that our kids actually saved our mission. I don't know how mission leaders do it without kids. If that's all you did for 3 years, I think you would actually become emotionally exhausted in every way. In a very real sense, our kids, especially our younger boy, who needed time with dad and wanted to go out frog hunting on a regular basis. His name's James. He was beloved by the missionaries. We called him the missionary mascot. Boy, when I was done with the interviews, if there was an evening, he expected to be with dad.
Yeah.
And had he not been there, I'm sure I would have just kept doing missionary work. But because of that, I got to be a dad, and that was one of the great blessings of my whole mission, being with all of our kids, doing it as a family.
Do you think that from other mission leaders that I've talked to that have had kids in home, have they reflected that it's a good experience, or have you seen now as years have passed the exposure that they had not only to the mission program but to missionaries as a benefit to your family?
No doubt it's a benefit. And there's some challenges, obviously. I'm not going to say there weren't costs and things
Sure.
like that. There were. But overall, a net major benefit to have the kids there. Our son just got back from a mission. He wanted to serve a mission so badly by the time we were done. We have a daughter that's working on her mission papers right now. She wants to go. And so the effect that these young elders and sisters and the seniors had on our kids is just incalculable. I am so grateful that we did get to do it with the entire family. Like the families I feel a little bit bad for are those that maybe they have got four older kids and then two kids they take to the mission field.
Right.
And so the family's kind of broken up or isolated in that experience because you really bond in a way I don't think any other church calling or responsibility could create that kind of environment. And so for us, I think having all five,
Mm.
all of us together, it was like the shared experience. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we went back to Washington, D.C. for the first time as a family. Now that our son's home from his mission, as I mentioned, from Texas.
Mhm.
And we all wanted to go back and kind of had that bookend experience and reflect. And we had the sweetest experience. But when we were there, I thought, well, what if a couple of our kids hadn't had that experience? It would be kind of
Right.
like the mission family and then the other family. I'm grateful it was all together.
Is there something to and bishops will reflect this where or stake presence as well. You serve and so much of your life is that calling, right? You're there long days and all these different things. And you guys as a family did this for 3 years and then you come back to Utah and you're kind of like, well, this is sort of boring compared to what we were doing before.
Well, it's certainly not quite as meaningful. I think that's the best description. It was the toughest thing I've ever done, but by far the most meaningful thing.
Mm,
I think what was hard is the kids, they get to go back into school and they've missed their friends.
sure.
They get kind of back into their routines and things like that. But I think what I missed the most, the kind of the sense of loss, was not spending so much time with my wife and having that shared sense of purpose. You kind of come back and suddenly you're back in your corporate academic world and she's doing her thing and they're both great things and they're both wonderful and I'm continue to be interested in her world and she
Sure.
in mine, but you're just not doing it together. And that's after having that experience as a couple, it was really sad not to. In fact, when we were back there a couple weeks ago, we both reflected like what a sweet time in our marriage that we had such a unity and just something to do together, not kind of separate spheres
Sure.
as we fall into so easily back home.
Yeah. Lead your life so you can go and do it again. Not necessarily the mission president, but then this time you get a pick and it's for shorter times, right?
Hey, we hope so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an
Doctor,
incredible experience.
tell me about being a doctor. What kind of doctorate do you have? Do you insist people call you doctor? Give me that kind of trajectory. Did you always want to be a doctor of sorts?
Well, you're so kind. I'm sure my wife will be laughing when she hears this part. I have a doctor of religious studies.
It's still
So
a
I'm an
doctorate.
academic.
Yeah,
Uh,
still a
but
doctorate.
but but every time we get on the plane and there's an emergency, which doesn't happen that often, but it's happened enough. And they'll say, "Is there a doctor on the plane?" I start to kind of raise my hand, and my wife's like, "Don't even
Yeah.
mess with these people. This could be a life-threatening situation." I go, "Honey, I am a doctor. I'm a doctor of the soul. I'm a
Yes.
doctor of religion. I'm a spiritual doctor. I just hate the sight of blood." So
And she just pats your hand and goes, I know, sweetheart. I know. Just
yeah,
let someone else take care of this.
she's like, "Yeah, when I see your paycheck, we know that you're not like the real doctor." So.
Did you always want to be a doctor of religious studies?
Well, I didn't even know, frankly, there was a doctor of religious studies. I didn't even know what religious studies was until I kind of got into the field. Um, I knew I wanted to be a historian, so I really see myself and view myself as a historian of religion in America.
Okay.
And so that was my field. The PhD is in religious studies, which is kind of the secular study of religion for state-sponsored institutions. At
Okay.
private institutions, you typically have a divinity school or a school of religion because there's no separation of church and state for a private institution.
Sure.
However, for a state-sponsored institution like where I went, the University of North Carolina, go Tar Heels, by the way,
Yeah.
You can't have a divinity school at a state school. So they invented a field called religious studies. It's kind of, I hate to use the term agnostic because I'm certainly not agnostic,
Sure.
but I think that is kind of a shorthand way to say it's the agnostic study of religion. And people say, well, why would anyone ever study religion if they don't believe it? I'm like, well, why do people study Russian literature or French art
Hmm.
or Cambodian sculpture or Japanese woodblock printing or any of these things?
Hmm.
We do it because we're absolutely fascinated in them, not because we're going to necessarily prove them to be true.
Yeah. I mean, you call it kind of that agnostic thing. I call it splitting a hair so we can do it at a state school. That's what
Well,
that's
that's one way to look at it. People have very, very strong feelings. And anyway, I was just thrilled that I could find a place where I could study what I wanted and receive outstanding training from some leaders in the field. And now I get to do it at BYU where I'm a professor. So it's been great.
What, as a kid, were you the kid that was just fascinated by early church history, or you're like, Joseph was told none of these churches were true, and you're like, yes, but from a historical, and then you just go off, or was it serving a mission that made you start to think about this, or what started that itch?
I've thought about that quite a bit, trying to figure out why do I do what I do and why
Yeah.
am I interested? And people have asked similar questions over the years. Looking back, for some reason, number one, I've always loved to read. And number two, there were a lot of church history books in our home. And my older sister and my mom in particular loved historical fiction. And so I think I grew up and cut my teeth on historical fiction. And for some reason, the message and the people and the story of the restoration really resonated with me from very early days. And I was always interested in it. The other piece that was always fascinating to me was my own family history
Hmm.
and how that tied into the restoration. And when I figured that my own family history was part of the restoration history, then it became absolutely fascinating to me. And so I was the one that kind of embraced my maternal grandmother's love of Utah history and restoration history and family history. I think I was the only grandkid that really kind of latched onto that. And she took a great interest in me as a result. I was interested in all the little genealogy charts and all the pictures she had of kind of old dead people, relatives all
Sure.
over the house. It looked like a museum in St. George. But for some reason, while most of my siblings and other cousins, thought it was great, but not super interesting, I wanted to know more. And that's where it all started.
We've talked about it a lot in the cultural hall, and normally you see these things kind of in the arts, studying things like singing or music or those kind of things. As members of the church, we're sort of taught, the men will provide, or I guess a little less and less, but typically that's the kind of thinking, whether it's stated or just understood or just cultural. When you're looking at studying history and recognizing, hey, you know what, if I was a doctor of medicine, that provides for a family in a way that I can have a family that way. What allowed you to go? And no, history. Maybe I'll be a professor of some sort, but I'm not going to make the money like a doctor to push towards it or to continue to go that way.
Yeah, great question. And thankfully, I've worked with a lot of very talented men and women in the field. I think there's great opportunities for both genders
Sure.
in all of academia, but particularly within history and Latter-day Saint history writing.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that. I think what really allowed me to have the confidence to do it, two things. Number one, my father was a real estate developer and was quite successful in his business. And he was always very solicitous of me and of my career and wanted to know how he could help and was very helpful through my graduate school years when money was tight.
Hmm.
And I always knew there was kind of a financial safety net back there with my
Oh, cool.
father. Very
Yeah.
supportive. The other thing that I did is before I went on and did a master's in history or my PhD, is I actually did business consulting in Los Angeles and made good money. And then I did an MBA. And so because of the MBA in my back pocket,
Hmm.
I always knew I could have a career and make money and be financially successful if that's what I chose to do.
Yeah.
And I think that allowed me to say, hey, I'm going to go into this field where there's very few jobs. I
Sure.
don't know if I'm going to get one of them, but hey, what the heck? I've
Yeah.
got a safety net. I've got an MBA, a supportive wife. Let's go for it. Let's try it. Let's chase the dream. And so I realize not everyone has those things.
Sure.
So I feel like I've been very privileged in that way.
Definitely. And now, would you consider for who you are and what you wanted, like given your position overseeing the things at BYU that you do, the fact that you've been able to work on these various books and projects and things like that, is this the life? Is this the thing that a young Reid at 20 just would have been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's my future? Or is there still other stuff out there that you're like, this is nice. This is like we're like Celestial Kingdom, but if we want to get like highest level of Celestial Kingdom, it's this. And I don't mean that in a life thing. I mean that
Oh, I know
purely
what you mean.
professionally.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When I worked in LA after graduating from BYU in undergrad, I was doing business consulting.
Hmm.
I lived in Orange County, but would take the train every day and commute to Los Angeles. And it was a little over an hour and 15-minute train ride. And I'd sit next to people on the train and I talked to them, oh, what do you do? I met lots of attorneys, lots of bankers, lots
Sure.
of IT professionals, etc. And I asked them, and some really enjoyed what they did. But I found that the majority of the people, at least that I talked to on the train, didn't really love or were very neutral. They kind of did it because they had to or they had a good income, but it wasn't really their passion. And in a way, it was a little disheartening to find that so few people actually love what they do.
Yeah,
And at the time, I was making good money. I thought it was a great job coming out of BYU. It seemed like a prestigious firm
sure.
and all those things, great training for a future MBA that I wanted. But I decided that I really wanted to do something that I loved. I didn't love what I did there. I
Hmm.
didn't love business consulting. It wasn't intellectually stimulating to me. Some of the questions we were trying to solve were,
Sure.
I was curious about them, but it just at the end of the day, I wanted to be done. When 5 o'clock came, like I didn't want to be there anymore. Of course, you typically had to work later than that
Sure.
in the field. And I thought, what can I do to actually do something that I love? Well, at the same time, I was working on my first history book at home. It was a biography of a great great grandfather who was an LDS pioneer. I'd never written a book before. I didn't know how to do it,
Hmm.
but I decided to write my first book. And so at night, I'd work on that project and was just so happy.
Sure.
And then I had to get up the next morning, get on that train and go back and do something that I didn't love. And I vowed I would figure out what it was. Well, it was staring me in the face.
Right.
I loved history writing. I loved Latter-day Saint history. And so that's the path that I decided to choose. And, it hasn't always been easy, of course. And I've been asked to do some difficult administrative things and manage different groups and lead. And I didn't anticipate that when I got into this career. I kind of thought that was back in business, but I find that you have to have managers and leaders in academia too.
Sure.
And I can tell you that particularly when I'm researching and writing, that's what I really love to do. When I'm doing that, I literally cannot think of anything that I'd rather do. And I used to fantasize about, oh, I want to go be a park ranger, or I want to be a travel tour guide, or all these things that sounded so fun
Sure.
that probably the reality would be tough. But for years now, I honestly cannot think of anything I'd rather be doing than what I do. It's
Feel
This is the highest level of the kingdom for me.
do you feel like sometimes people will reflect that this is what God called them to do? Do you feel it that way?
I do. I recently published a biography of a longtime assistant church historian there in the historian's office in Salt Lake City. His name's Andrew Jensen, one of my heroes.
Hmm.
He filled that role for almost 4 decades. And at the end of his life, he wrote in his autobiography, he talked about that, some people, the great noble ones, reflecting on the book of Abraham. And he said, we believe in the great noble ones. And he said, I feel like I have been called to be a historian to document the lives and works and ministries of the great noble ones that God called.
Mm.
And I remember reading that for the first time, and it just resonated with me that he had such a sense of mission and purpose, and that he saw himself kind of in a cosmic sense doing something that was foreordained,
Mm.
that he was created to do. His mind and spirit it worked to do this work. And I don't know how all that works, but there are times, in fact, many times when I feel like, well, I don't know if I was called to do this work, but boy, I'm so grateful that I'm allowed to do this work, and that Father in heaven has blessed me with interests and talents and gifts and drive that allow me to do it. So yeah, I'm curious when we get to the other side, we find out like what gifts were we given? What interests were we given? Did we get to choose all this stuff? Did we
Sure.
develop it beforehand? How does all that work? I have no idea. But there are times, I'll tell you, when I feel like I am designed or built to do just what I'm doing. And that's the greatest feeling. It's like all my experience resonates and combines to allow me to try and be excellent in my field of work.
Yeah. Pretty inspirational too, the way that you shared that. When I think about like getting to the other side and they're like, yeah, you really let us down. We thought there was going to be some other stuff for you, Richie. We thought you really would have risen to it. That's the thing I fear. I want to take a quick break. When we come back, you have edited a book. So we're going to talk about that because you didn't write it, but you have done tremendous work on it. How does that work? What are we even talking about? We'll come back and do that in the second block of the Cultural Hall.
Looking for a gift that's meaningful and unique? Discover the artistry of Latter-day 3D Studio, where we 3D print exquisitely detailed temple magnets, Christmas ornaments, temple ties, and more. Each item is meticulously crafted layer by layer to bring the spirit of the temple into your home. These creations make ideal gifts for baptisms, ordinations, or birthdays in primary, young women, or relief society. Visit LatterdayThreeDStudio.com and find the temple that inspires you. Latter-day 3D Studio, where faith meets craftsmanship.
Here in the second block of the Cultural Hall, remember that you can become a Patreon saint of the Cultural Hall. You go to patreon.com/the Cultural Hall, and for as little as $5 a month, you get to be a part of the secret but not sacred Facebook group where we're all talking about the various things that you see in the episodes. Like, you may be wondering, if you're watching the video, what is that drink that Reid is drinking? Don't tell us, Reid. People will want to speculate within the video that they see. And that's the kind of conversation we have in the Patreon group. It's patreon.com/the Cultural Hall. So in association with Greg Koford Books, we need to give a shout out to Trent Passy. There is this book, Elias, an epic of the ages, and written by Orson F. Whitney, or Orson Ferguson Whitney. But then it's a critical edition that is edited by you, sir. What is this? You didn't write it, so you went through and went, you got that wrong. Oh, that's not it. What are people getting when they get this book?
Great question. Well, this has been a kind of a labor of love for a number of years. I've written many books and I've also edited many books, and the process is very, very different. As an author, you're creating something new. You're taking research and other things out there, and you're really creating something that's never been had before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great creative process. Like I mentioned, I wrote that biography with my co-author Scott Mariano on Andrew Jensen, and that was a very different process. That was collaborative, but you're weaving together all sorts of stuff. In this case, this is a critical edition, we call it in academia. That does not mean critical in a negative sense. This is not a critique necessarily of this, but what it is it's a type of writing or a type of editing that takes an existing manuscript, in this case an epic poem with 10 cantos or chapters, written by Orson F. Whitney. He published the first edition of his Elias epic in 1904. A year later, or 2 years later, he becomes a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And then he issues in 1914 a second edition that was updated of this epic poem. If you think of John Milton in Paradise Lost, this attempt to tell in poetry the grand narrative of the creation, the fall and atonement and redemption of man, right? A Christian story, the story of the scriptures and the modern times. That's what that book does. And Orson F. Whitney, as a Latter-day Saint poet himself and a historian, he was also an assistant church historian there in the historian's office for several years. He wanted to use this John Milton-esque style to tell this larger story. And so he did it, and it was remarkably successful. The Latter-day Saints loved it. They had a series of private and public readings. That's something he used to do at the turn of the 20th century, where you'd all get together. They didn't have the they didn't have the radio, they didn't have the TV, they didn't have all these things that we do to gather. And so dramatic readings used to be a really big deal. And they'd read this poetry and they'd kind of bask in language and enjoy each other, kind of a salon type environment.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a bestseller in the Utah market. Latter-day Saints absolutely loved it. But this is something he tinkered with throughout his entire life. He wanted to do a third edition, but he never did it. Make a long story short, this is my best attempt as a scholar to understand Orson F. Whitney, his motivations for doing it, why he did it, how it was received when it came out in 1904 and 1914, and then how people have reflected in later years when there's been some distance from the book, Was he successful as a poet, as a historian? What do people think today, and what contributions did he make to our literature?
Are there things that, because it's this epic poem that talks, about us, are there things that are because of its delivery that you're able to either feel or understand more than, say, President Oaks in last General Conference, where he goes, "I'm about to tell you about this, and now I'm going to tell you about this, and then I'm going to follow up on this, and then we're going to exhort that." Poetry does not work that way. Are there things that we can gain a greater understanding through this work than maybe we could through other, types of oration?
Great question. Again, what he was trying to do is communicate and communicate in a certain way using a certain tool
Hmm.
or rhetorical style. In this case, it's epic poetry. I talked in the introduction about my uh, beginning awareness of this. When I was a young man, I think I was in the Aaronic priesthood, and a visiting authority came to a Christmas sacrament meeting in
Okay.
our state. I still don't remember exactly who it was. I think, or I have some ideas of who it might have been, but he came and he quoted one of the cantos. And if I were to quote it to you today, you and many of your listeners would be familiar. You'd be like, "Oh, I didn't know that was Orson F. Whitney."
Hmm.
And what it is, he's talking in the premortal life. This poem began as a Christmas poem, and he's talking about Jehovah in the premortal life answering the call of Elohim to go down and save mankind. And you
Mm.
have this grand narrative, from Scripture of Satan, Lucifer, and Jehovah kind of offering up different options for the Father. And the Father says, "I have one plan, and Jehovah's going to follow it." And then he casts Lucifer down. And of course, that's the great story of the war in heaven. And this person came to our sacrament meeting and without notes, without text, for several minutes, quoted this entire kind of oration. And I was absolutely spellbound. So, yes, when you have certain people today give modern general conference talks, sometimes they're very formal, in
Sure.
some cases legalistic. They're trying to communicate a certain way. Well, Orson F. Whitney, he was trying to capture hearts and imagination.
Mm.
And as a young Aaronic priesthood holder, I just sat there listening. I thought, number one, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And number two, I want to understand some of those big words and phrases and poetic styling that I don't get right now. And so I always had it in the back of my mind. And finally, as a midlife scholar, I thought, I want to dig into this and use my best tools that I have. I'm not a poet, I'm not a literature specialist, but I kind of come at it as a historian to say, how can we understand this in its historical context? So that's what I give our readers.
There are many that I'm sure at hearing this go, "I had no idea that this even existed," right? The original book or the second edition,
Right.
um, and are coming to this going, "Oh man, where has this been?" Um, has it lost popularity just because of space and time since the time of Orson F. Whitney and the writing? Is it because we have the attention span of TikTok and they're not, 15-second cantos that we can go, "Yeah, great, I got it, perfect, next one, next one." Why do we not know more about this now?
Great question. I really do think that not only his poetry has fallen into not disuse, but a loss of understanding. I think we have a short memory
Hmm.
as a people. And there's so much now, current authors that we're tied into, that we're interested in, that we share with our friends and families, that we share snippets with over social media, what have you. I also think that we've lost the ability to understand poetry.
Hmm.
It was very interesting. In the 1904 edition, he publishes it with no footnotes. I think just assuming that people understand. And then in his 1914 edition, a decade later, he says, I've gotten a lot of feedback that a lot of people really want to understand this, but they can't. So he adds hundreds of footnotes, which I've included in this volume to explain what he's talking about. But I think it's a lot more work. Like you say, you want to listen to or read or share a TikTok
Hmm.
or a little Instagram post or something like that. This is a 10 chapter poem with dense imagery, scriptural allusions throughout. It takes work, and I think that this generation is just not as familiar with that type of intellectual work that the people before. I think they had more time on their hands, and the idea of reading a book and poring over literature and hearing words pouring off the lips of others. those are incredible pastimes for kind of the intelligentsia of the church.
Sure.
That was a great thing to do. Maybe we don't do that much anymore.
What value has like understanding, studying these words brought to you? Clarifying doctrine? Is it firming your testimony? Is it broadening your horizons and your ability to imagine? What has this particular work brought to your life?
I think for me, I do Latter-day Saint history, right? So
Mhm.
it's funny when I talk to my colleagues that I went to graduate school with and that I'm in the field with, when I say the term church history,
Mhm.
I mean like 1805, the birth of Joseph Smith to the present.
Sure.
That's like a 200-year history. That's a very short history. Anytime I talk to my colleagues that aren't members of the church,
Mhm.
when I say church history, that means all of Christian history. That means, zero to the present. And they kind of laugh and tease us Latter-day Saints a little bit that say, you think you know church history, you only know like 200 years of it. If you go to the Christian fathers or all these others, you don't know anything about it. Like how are you part of the Christian tradition if you don't even know who we are? And maybe there's something to be said for that we as Latter-day Saints do need to know more about the larger Christian past. Well, Orson F. Whitney, what I love about this particular book is, and he is a Latter-day Saint historian,
Mhm.
but he is saying, no, 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 church history isn't the restoration, and it's not just the bringing of time to the present, Jesus Christ's life and aftermath,
Mhm.
and it's not even the Old Testament patriarchs or the Jewish history, all the forerunners and the prophets. It stretches back eternities to the creation and to Elohim and intelligences and a plan and a Jehovah and a Lucifer. And he's saying this story is so much bigger than anything maybe we think about since, Vermont, 1805, birth of Joseph Smith. You've got to be thinking about, when you think about the creation and fall and redemption of God's children, let's think much, much broader, much deeper, and much farther back into eternal history. And I think for me, it's forced me as a historian of religion in America to go, hey, religion in America, this is like baby steps.
Yeah.
Really think much, much bigger and much broader than I ever have.
I want to take a break because I want to give you the opportunity to find what I'm about to ask you. To say a favorite part, I know what you will say. They're all my favorite. It's so rich, all of the different things. But if there is a small portion, we're going to make you dramatically read. You don't have to dramatically read it, but I would love it if you would share just a
Okay.
little bit so people can get an idea of what it is that we're talking about. In a way, I sort of feel like maybe I've done us a disservice by not having you share this earlier. It seems like we're sort of talking about a piece of art, and it's like, well, there's shadows, and it's got this, and if people can hear it or see it, they can go, oh, okay, now I get exactly what it is. We're going to take a quick break. I want to give you a moment to be able to find a portion to share. We'll come back in the third block. There are also 3 questions that we ask everyone who steps in the cultural hall. I'll ask those of you, and then we will send him because he has got a meeting working at BYU. They not only have believed in many meetings,
This
there
is the
are many
church.
meetings, and there will yet be many meetings. It's that article of
Well
faith.
said. Well said.
We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll share that portion and then ask those questions. That's in the third block of the Cultural Hall. Let me take just a moment to tell you all about bestdjinutah.com. That is the website where you can learn all about me. Oh, sure, you probably feel like you know me, but you know me in the Cultural Hall sense. I have a DJ company, now 6 of us strong, great event hosts, MCs, and DJs that can be able to make whatever event you have coming up absolutely spectacular, and hope you will reach out to us. Now you're thinking, well, wait a minute, Richie, I don't live in Utah. Would you travel? Absolutely, I would travel. Would they travel? Absolutely, they would travel. Whatever your event is, doesn't have to be a wedding or a community event. We can do all sorts of things. I can teach you line dancing. I can dance with you. We can do partner dancing. We can do all kinds of things, but we can't do any of it if you don't hit me up. You can go to bestdjinutah.com. You can fill out the form to get more information or get a quote, and then I will get right back to you. Find out why I'm so busy and why sometimes we don't get episodes of the Cultural Hall. It's all because of bestdjinutah.com. Here in the third block of the Cultural Hall, if you have liked this episode, you want to react to something said within the episode, you can always email us, contact@theculturalhall.com. If you know a great guest that would make the show great into the future, you can email us that contact information as well. It's contact@theculturalhall.com. So, Elias, An Epic of the Ages, a reading by Dr. Reid Neilson.
Well, thank you for the chance to read a little bit. Let me just quote from Canto 3. This is part of the original poem that he wrote early on for Christmas,
Okay.
talking about what Christmas is all about. And so, Canto 3, here's just a couple of stanzas, and I hope I get some of the pronunciation correct. He really takes a lot of words for rhyming and things like that, and tweaks the ends.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So here we go. This is the premortal councils, and they've been talking about Elohim the Father, and they're going to be introducing the Son. And this is what captured my attention as a young man. In solemn councils sat the gods from Kolob's height supreme. Celestial light blazed forth afar over countless cocoa beam, and faintest tinge the fiery fringe of that resplendent day, lumined the dark abysmal realm where earth in chaos lay. Silence. That awful hour was won, when thought doth most avail of worlds unborn the destiny, hung trembling in the scale. Silent self-spelled, and there arose those kings and priests among, a power sublime than whom appeared none nobler mid the throng.
Mm.
A stature mingling strength with grace, of meek through godlike mien, the glory of whose countenance outshone the noonday sheen. Whiter his hair than ocean spray, or frost of alpine hill, he spake, attention grew more grave, the stillness even more still. And here he's introducing the Savior. I'll just read two more
Yes, please.
little stanzas. Father, the voice like music fell, clear as the murmuring flow of mountain streamlet trickling down from heights of virgin snow. Father, it said, since one must die, thy children to redeem, from spheres all formless now and void, where pulsing life shall teem. And mighty Michael, foremost fall, that mortal man may be, and chosen Savior thou must send. Lo, here am I, send me. I ask, I seek no recompense, save that which were mine. Mine be the willing sacrifice, the endless glory thine. And so that's the Savior introducing himself, saying, hey, I'm willing to go down and redeem all of our children.
Yes, yes. And I feel like I need to snap at the end of your poetry right there. That's what we do. That is, I love this. And I hope that people that have been listening to our time together love it like I do. There is something so very valuable about like reading the scriptures and the way that the scriptures are written and being able to receive the Spirit that way. And there is something so very powerful about music and the way that we're able to sing our testimonies. And I just think this is another tremendous gift from God to be able to learn more about this time, this situation, this individual, this all of these things, to be able to have a greater understanding of our Heavenly Father's plan. I think it's so cool. And
Well, thank you.
such a tremendous amount of work that you have done to say, hey guys, changed my life, and now here I've studied it. Get more from it than even I have, and be able to indulge in on all those things. So tremendous. It's in collaboration with Greg Koford Books. There's a link in the show notes so people can pick up this book. Just been out little under a month at this point. Tell me, reception been good about it so far?
Very good reception. It's gotten great reviews from different scholars. I love the different blurbs that people have sent in that they've gathered.
Sure.
Trent does an excellent job in garnering publicity, and Lloyd and Greg and the other team there at Greg Koford, they've just been outstanding to work with.
Yeah. 3 questions we ask everyone who steps into the Cultural Hall. I'll ask those of you now. First question is do you have a calling, sir? And if so, what is it?
Well, I was just released as the stake mission prep teacher after 3 years.
Okay.
And now I'm the 9-year-old activity days leader.
There you
And
go.
I'm just having a blast. My first time ever serving in primary. It's great.
Now, is that how old your youngest is then? About that?
Yes,
same
he's
age?
now 9 years old, so I get to work with him.
Yay.
And we get to plan activities, and I find out real quickly if the activity was good or if it stunk. He is very quick to give me thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah. Yeah, kids are great that way. And also
Yeah, you know what they think.
Yeah, heck yeah. They don't ever let you hang, and you go, oh, I know exactly. Second question, if you could pick a calling, either one that exists or make one up, what would you pick?
Well, again, having never served in the primary, I'm loving this calling right now. I'd love to be a gospel doctrine teacher this year, teaching church history. Ironically, my wife was put in that calling.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's living my dream right now in our home ward, teaching church history.
Well, we've got 3 years or 4 years, depending on how you count it, and you'll get the opportunity. Maybe again, it'll come back around.
Hey, 4 years, it'll come back around.
Yeah. The final question we ask everyone, we ask you to interpret it however you would. But the question remains, what is your favorite part of your faith?
The favorite part of my faith. I think being a dad and a husband and knowing what that means and how these roles are eternal, I think that gives incredible meaning to what is my favorite part of just life. And so I'm grateful that life and faith align so well there.
And I think I would add on to it to just extend to many that you were mission presidents for. I know I certainly considered a father figure with my mission presidents, both, the president and sister, that they were father and mother figures for me, recently passed, and reflected about all the great things that they taught me. I know that you are that for them as well. So,
well, we tried, and we love them. And just today on campus, walking across BOE campus, I saw 2 of our missionaries, and it just brings me joy each time I see the good things they're doing.
Well, Dr. Reid Neilson, the book is called Elias, an Epic of the Ages. It's a critical edition. So much work, a life's legacy, really, when you think about being a young priesthood holder and now being able to complete this in you called it midlife. What did you say? Midlife scholar?
Yeah, hey, I like that. I'm 53, so I think that's midlife.
Yeah, midlife scholar. We hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body, that if you are not healthy enough to listen this week, that you will be healthy enough to listen next week, and that when the time comes, you will be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, go Tar Heels! Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you on the back row of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.